Hey there, everybody. How's it going? And welcome back. Y'all got me dressed real godly up in here, right? Like a fucking priest. Ooh, clearly not. It's hot, but yeah, I'm looking godly. You know, this Saturday, um, feeling like Sunday, being dressed like this, right? But on the real, guys, I don't be having nowhere to wear this shit. Basically, actually bought a lot of clothes. Some of you might have been following me from last winter, um, and clothes that I felt like I wanted to represent my new everything. You know, new direction I would be headed in life. And at that time, I sort of thought that would have been back to work until meditating that, and realizing that, yeah, I'm going back to work, but back to work for me. So it's nothing wrong with dressing up and doing your corporate thing without having a job or a church to go to, basically. Give me 1 second. It's time for me to get some more juice. Should taste real flat. Um, so as promised, I'm back to talk a little bit more about my life. And I think that that's always a little more difficult for Libra. We know that I tie astrology into so many things. Let's do it right now. And so, what is it that will make a Libra feel extremely uncomfortable talking about themselves, right? Well, if you know anything about astrology, you would know that Libra is the opposite sign of Aries. Aries is the sign of self. So, Libra is the sign of the non-self and the sign that rules over the other. That rules over relationships, marriages, partnerships, contracts, things like that. And so a lot of Libras, to keep it in layman's terms, have no sense of self. And a lot of their emphasis and focuses will always be on someone else. This is our default, our comfort zone, our default mechanism is to focus on others, and so it always gets a little more uncomfortable and quiet when you really require a Libra to go in, to go deep, and to go into themselves and their own lives. That's really far more difficult for us to do. Another place where I think you see it exhibited too, if you've had the chance since I posted my last video, was when you look at Spiritual Whistleblower. And almost all of her content is certainly on her life experiences, dealing with the disorder. But what I also noticed, and I think that she's made some changes on that score as well, is maybe on her Patreon, she does more personalization, more pictures, more talking about her life. At least that's what she says she does. And so maybe that could be worth even checking out as well, guys. But it'd be hard to get to know a Libra. Why? Now, before I bust down, I can't be distracted right now. I gotta find something. So bear with me, guys, for one quick second. Okay. So to get a little more serious, right? I love to smile and joke with you guys, but it's time to get a little more serious. Okay. Stop laughing. It's time to get serious. So my name is Minyata, and I was born on September 25th at. I'm not even going to give the time. I know the time I was born. I was born in the afternoon, but that's information. That's dangerous information to just give out, astrologically speaking, at least, and Those that know astrology would know what I mean. Otherwise, yeah, I was born in the afternoon to my mother and father, who named me. My father named me Minyata. And basically where he got that from was mañana in Espanol, which means tomorrow. And I don't know if he was just inspired by the actual meaning tomorrow, the future, or just the way it sounds, or a culmination, or if somewhere deep down the line of my family, we have Spanish people. I don't know. Whenever I'm asked, I can't say definitively because I didn't know his side so well. And I hope my glasses are not crooked on me. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know his side so well. And so I think it might have been a culmination of those things. I had a girl I met not even recently, in 2017. I'll never forget it. She was like, "Girl, what is your name? Your mom must have had some good pussy to have your daddy getting all creative." And I was just like, that's so random, but okay. Okay, I never thought about it, but okay. Either which way, yeah, he named me Minyata from Miñana in Spanish. Somehow it still ties into my personality, guys, because I've always been a strategist in my life. I've always been a planner, and I've always been a few steps ahead of my peers, a lot of times my family, life in general, especially my younger years. Right now it's gotten a little easier, gotten a little better, was a lonely road, for the fact that in my household, everyone was in a feminine sign, from my mother, my brother, my sister. So there was Capricorn, Scorpio, Cancer. I was the only masculine sign, and I don't mean to just get into this because you know what, you got to know a little. So, okay. So all of the 12 signs have genders, that they are, in which they are assigned, or different levels of masculine and feminine energy. And so Aries is the most masculine point, the most masculine sign, fire sign, to Pisces, a water sign, being the most feminine sign out of all of the signs. Libra is right in the middle. Libra is also opposite of Aries. But Libra is also a masculine sign, just not fully masculine, part ways. So the air signs specific do rule over and deal with ambiguity, which the meaning of is a equal balance of both masculine and feminine energy. And so with that said, a good ideology or example of that may manifest as me. Okay? Like, I'm very feminine in my dress, in my demeanor, in my mannerisms, and the way I, my makeup, my hair, everything is feminine. But then it becomes confusing because communicatively and intellectually, it's masculine. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love to read, I love to write. These are not to say that only those attributes are strictly assigned to the masculine aspect, right? But we have a right and a left brain. The left side of our brain, it rules over math and science. That's the masculine, pragmatic side of our brains. The right side is the literature and arts and poetry. That's the feminine side of our brains. So in that aspect, and just strictly energetically speaking. And so in my household, that I was the only masculine sign. And so I grew up loving writing and reading and in words and learning and communicating and relating. And I felt peerless, from my home life, even to school. For some reason, when I would go to school, I felt like these were my sons, these were my kids, like these kids were younger than me, and like I could not relate to them. And I didn't talk to them. I did not have a peer relationship with my peers. But the one thing I could always remember, there would be those of them that would point out, "Oh my God, you write so pretty and you write so fast." If not that, they would always compliment my nails. So there were certain trademarks, I guess, and attributes that I became known by, but just all they knew was this girl is so quiet, and they would always wonder why. And so in that regard, it did guys, feel like growing up very much alone and with no one to relate. And like I always had to dumb myself down in order to have a sense of camaraderie to my brothers and sisters, and I never felt that camaraderie to my mother from my younger all the way up into my older years. Not until much later in life when my baby sister, the youngest sister, came along, being an Aries, did I finally feel a semblance of a kinship, someone like me, you know. And so even my father was a Pisces, right? And he was a pimp. My father, my mother, and I'm not sure as to whether I had went into this on prior videos, but again, I said that I wanted to get more into myself today, guys, but it's no way of doing that without getting into your parents. They're basically who made you, or at least were the channels in which that God chose to, you know, bring you onto the third dimensional realm. And so, yeah, my father was a pimp and my mother was actually his bottom bitch. Growing up, he kept her in a back room all the time, you know, unless she was stepping out to work. And we know what that work was. Sometimes he would beat her. In fact, a lot of times he would, off of speculating that she was enjoying the work a little bit too much. If not that, they would do things like go out to stores, and my mom would talk about those things even until our adult years about how they stole, you know, clothes all the time, like sometimes our whole freaking wardrobes, and that shit was fucked up. My dad said that, you know, you had fashion as a baby. You loved to dress up, and we would just dress you up, and sometime you'll go and just sit by the door and just wait for us to take you somewhere. You just wanted to go somewhere. So sometime in reggae music, I would hear these little phrases, bad from me bond, you know what I'm saying? Like being a diva, you know, from a baby. Like the way that my dad is described, he was like, wow, really? So I've been into fashion and socializing and going out since I was a baby. Now, from being a few months old, even, I can remember. And sometimes, guys, it's stuff we can remember from sometime 3 months old, depending on our mental abilities. The way it felt to me was like my subconscious memories were like dreams, but I know they were real because I talked to my father later and he verified so many of these things for me. But I was far closer to him than I was to my mother. He told me as a little girl, so here goes that Libra ambiguity, that I love to dress and go out and be seen, but then I did not like to play with my own toys and Barbies. Now, I do have a brother, as we all know, JR, who's about 5 years older than me. And he was opposite to me, being that he grew to be a transgender woman. Maybe he was playing with my toys and I was playing with his. My dad told me, yeah, you didn't want to play with girl toys. You always wanted to play with a G.I. Joe. And so that I was far closer to him than I was to my mother. I remember him taking me out everywhere with him, guys. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere, from the bar to the barbershop to wherever in the hell he was. He just always had me on his hip. And I was like, how was I 3 months old, you know, in a bar? Hey, I was always with my daddy. Okay, just stunned with my daddy, right? And so what I came to learn from my mother is that prior to her leaving him, which predominantly tied into his abuse, verbal, physical, mental, emotional abuse toward her, was that she almost thought about leaving me with him. And, you know, from the way she described him, in which she didn't talk much about him in our upbringing, I think she just didn't want to have negative things to say, so chose to say nothing at all, was that she initially thought of leaving me with him. And I was like, Mom, you never said anything good about him. Why would you want to leave me? And she was like, well, girl, because he was never that way with you. Okay. Although I'm still glad she did not do that. It did make me think sometime later that maybe there was a resentfulness of the relationship that I had to him, and then for him to turn around and be the way that he was with her. oftentimes. And so I sometimes feel, guys, that my first competitor in life, or the first woman to view me as hers, was my very own mother, in which before she died, she said these very powerful words that I've made it a point to turn around, but she was probably absolutely right about that. Minyata, when it comes to women, they're gonna hate you. And she just left me with no words. These are some of her last words to me. And it made me think some time later, because so often conversations and situations become more clear in hindsight. And maybe she was speaking on her own behalf, because she was that first woman that hated my motherfucking ass for whatever reason. Either which way, it made me grow up feeling like I grew up without a mom. How is that possible, guys? To be with your mom every day of your life and to somehow still grow up and feel like you never had that figure. You never had that energy surrounded. Yeah. It'd be hard to talk about things sometimes, guys, but you know what? It's very therapeutic and cleansing. So I'm going to continue as soon as I get back. And so, yeah, that was kind of what was going on when I was initially born. My father was making my mother be a vegetarian, so she was eating very clean at the time she was pregnant with me. I think they were into some type of Black Panther practices or something, indoctrinations, because a lot of the things that she taught us sometime later that I know did come into play from my father at the time that she was pregnant with me. And so my high level of consciousness and intellect, dialect, communication skills, and all of those things came from what she was being fed at the time. At the time she was pregnant with me, I'm not sure as to whether she was in that line of work just yet, but I know the drugs and a lot of things hadn't came into play at that time. By the time my sister now, who was the golden child, came into play, a lot was already underway. The lifestyle, the drugs, and a lot of that is made manifest in my sister's life and to this day. And I say all of these things to say you have to look at the things that were going on in your parents' life if you're fortunate enough to find out at the time that you were conceived, prior to, and even shortly thereafter, to see what went into you, because I'm a fighter for women, for those that can't speak for themselves. And so it was some righteousness. It was a high level of consciousness going on at that time. I was born in 1983. And so maybe this is right when the crack epidemic was coming up, and I was born at a perfect time at the precipice, before a lot of that was made manifest, and it still is in me, in my blood, running through my blood. All of those things, the good things that were going through my mother and father at that small window of time, guys. We know that didn't last. And either which way, I'm going to take a very quick break, and I will be back. See you then.